yes, I realise it's not that sort of East versus West, but who can resist an excuse to use the 2 Travs bass line? But before I even start this review, let's put these two into context, shall we? Here we've got 2 semi-modular synths with Pittsburgh modular innards that cost just over £200 each in the UK. Here they are in perfect circuit in the US for $249. I've got an affiliate link in the description, or maybe I'm even organised enough to put it on the screen around now. So if you're thinking of getting one, it'd be great if you could get one there. And here's the West Pest, and this is in Thomann for €249, and I've got an affiliate link for them as well. So if you're in Europe, please think about picking one up from them via the link below in the description. But yeah, $249 for what is essentially a few very nice Pittsburgh modular bits and bobs all combined into a single module, which can't be bad. And I wasn't quite sure how the partnership between Cre8 and Pittsburgh Modular worked until I visited the Cre8audio stand at Synthfest in the UK last week, where they told me it's a really collaborative approach, working together. The idea being to bring great value, high quality products to the modular masses, and it seems like they're fulfilling their brief. Looking at the West Pest, for example, we've got a Wavefolder oscillator. That's got a few waveforms, that was a sine. We've also got triangle. And we got a sawtooth. I'll look at these in a little bit more detail in a minute. Mix and match between them if you look over there. And if we've got all 3, we've got noise. We've also got this modern interpretation of a low pass gate. We've got sustain and release control as well as a resonance. Plus this really strange, or really cool I should say, release modulation. So we can modulate when it's just in the release phase. Let's put it onto a better wave, shall we, to hear that. So they're 2 nice little units in themselves. We've got an output from the fold out, we've got an output from the oscillator out, we've got inputs for the dynamics control. There we go, dynamics in, dynamics modulation in, dynamics gate in. So you can use them as separate modules if you want. And we've got similar stuff over there on the East Beast. Plus we've got an LFO that goes from sort of really slow. Let's just modulate the Wavefolder mount. So LFO. Basically audio rates, and we can change that using the LFO rate, LFO range. So super slow, I don't know what the stats are. All the way to... And on the East Beast, we've got a fully featured filter. Let's just put this onto a sawtooth. Can mix and match the waves again on this. Let's just put it onto a low pass, shall we? Oops. Really nice filter that. And we've got low pass, band pass and high pass. Low pass, oops, band pass. High pass. And we can mix and match between them as well. Notch. And whatever that is. Oh, and I've put it onto hold there. We've got hold function as well. Again, the oscillator, it's pretty flexible. Got a sine, we've got a triangle, we've got a sawtooth, and we've got a square. And we've got mix and match in between them as well. So let's put the hold back on, shall we? So maybe I'll take a little bit more of a look at that in a second, but you can see there two really quite flexible little synths. Definitely got three distinct sections on each of them. We've got the oscillator, we've got the filter, and we've got the envelope on the East Beast. We've got the oscillator, we've got the folder, and we've got the dynamics control on the West Pest, plus an LFO and an inbuilt sequencer. And a few, as you can see, little patch points on each. So they are fabulous value for money, I think. We're off to an excellent start. They come in these neat little cases, so you don't need a rack to get you going, and you can easily unscrew them and throw them into your Euro rack if you want. If we take a look at the back, you simply plug in your power into this bit here, as you would with any other module. And this is obviously a growing trend, like the Mother 32, the Mavis, the DFAM from Moog, or with effects like the Zoya from Empress, and it's a trend I fully support. Sometimes you want a standalone unit to sit on your table, and sometimes you want to throw it in a rack. Great. Okay then, I think I'm going to break the Synthonet rules now by not going into the history of East and West Coast synth design, mainly because if you're looking at either of these, you'll know why one is called the East Beast and why one is called the West Pest. And if you don't, where have you been? There's loads of other videos demoing and explaining why one's East and why one's West. But what I'm going to do is demo the difference in the sounds they can produce and why they're different. Plus, I'll show a couple of the more interesting things that you may not realise they can do, hopefully. But first, we'll take a look at what they both have, and that's the interface. So as you've just seen me play the mini keyboard, they've both got one, and they both work in exactly the same way, really. Let's get a slightly more sort of sensible sound out of each of them. And that's the typical sort of sound you make with a subtractive synth. I'm using the LFO out there going to the width modulation in to get PWM. And on the West Pest, I'd say those two sounds pretty much sum up the differences in how you use these things. Typical big, ballsy sounding subtractive synth from the East Beast. Let's put it onto a sawtooth, shall we? We all know how these work. And the much more Buchla-esque West Pest. Much more plucky and percussive. And much more harmonic as well. Listening to a sawtooth on this. And that's the difference the internal bits and bobs do to the sounds. Both starting off with a sawtooth. That's the East. That's the West. So if you're after specific tones, they're sort of typical. If we do the West Pest and go a bit more sort of bassy, do a bit of wave folding. That's a bit too bassy. Or let's modulate that even with the LFO. Let's put it on a lower range. Got sidetracked a little bit there. I was showing you how the functions work. Can't help myself but sort of play around with them though. So you can see here we've got yellow text and we've got white text. So we've got a white button. This is, well, they're both all white, but this one says it's white and this one says it's yellow. So we've got oscillator wave shape, hit the yellow. We can see the oscillator wave shape changing. There we go. We've got things like hold. We saw that earlier, but if I play something, see the hold button's lit there. We're holding. Sequencer. It starts playing as soon as you press sequencer. Then we can clear that. We can put something new in. Some rests in as well. So stop it, sequencer reset, transpose, sequencer octave, so you can change the number of octaves it's playing, so play again. These 4 LEDs here indicate various things depending on what mode you're in. So now we're doing 3 octaves. To the 1, I think. There we go. Just stop it. You saw me play with the LFO range before, so from slow to fast. And we've got other stuff here like envelope retrigger, sequencer or the ARP mode, self-generating stuff. We've got random here, so actually I'll show you random really quickly. Press random, every time I press a key, it picks a new random oscillator shape or wave shape. If I put the multi out into the filter mod and just check where the multi-function's going, it's going from the Midi, so, or it's sending the Midi. And that's coming from this modulator, or that signal's coming from this modulator in Logic. So that's massively handy actually. That means if you're syncing up with your DAW, you can modulate whatever you like with a CC. Brilliant. But you get the idea. These 2 buttons bring out multi-functions in the keypad. Let's take that random off, shall we? It's better. So that's how they work. That was a really quick, super quick overview actually, but that's all you need to get going. And I don't want to dig into that anymore. There are other videos doing that, but really once you get these, you start playing with them. You will have to look in the manual for some of the functions like the external clock amount and things, but really it's all laid out here. Very, very simple to use. So let's take a look at the sound engines. As we saw before, they've both got an oscillator, this one's got a filter and an envelope in there. We've got the Wavefolder in there. So similar things, but work in different ways. In the East Beast, everything is super familiar. As you saw, we've got an oscillator with a few wave shapes. And if you're into your synths and you know subtractive synthesis, you will be 100% okay with how everything works on the East Beast instantly. So start with a sawtooth. Take that modulation off, shall we? getting a little bit more geeky and bringing the frequency analyzer in. You can hear that's a super smooth, lovely filter. But you don't go down to those really bassy territories. And it doesn't self-oscillate in the way that if you've got nothing coming in, it'll play on its own. Well, you can't have nothing coming in because, well, I suppose you could. Let's put a filter in here. There's nothing there. You need an input. And you can hear there's no filter tracking. You may be able to track it somehow. I've not figured out a way. You've got the pitch out there, but it's that Midi and CV. Let's just try it. Filter mod. Yeah, there you go, filter tracking. I take it back. And as far as the oscillators go, these are gorgeous. I'll just stick it directly into the oscillator out, so we're not listening to the filter. Look at that bad boy. Now that's a sawtooth, isn't it? That's not messing about. Square. That's a sine and a sawtooth, sine and a square. Lovely shapes in there. Sawtooth and a square. Noise and the sine. And obviously I'm just checking the pulse width. It doesn't do anything on those. Yeah, really cool. And I think I'll leave it there with the East Beast. It does what you think it's going to do. So yeah, put pulse width modulation, put the LFO out, put that into the width modulation, and then put it onto something that's got a square on it. Let's put it back straight into the square. This is now the pulse width modulation amount. Notice we're not losing bass or not losing volume when we bring the resonance in. Turn it up again like you might expect. Look at that, you can see the resonance peak popping up around 10k there. But that fundamental's not changing at all. Very nice, very fat, amazing oscillators in there and a gorgeous filter. So those oscillators are great for other stuff, obviously. And you can use your pitch in like you would with any oscillator module. So a Pittsburgh modular oscillator plus filter for $249, was it? And an envelope thrown in, LFO thrown in, and a load of other bits also as well. So can't go wrong, I don't think. West Pest, this is possibly the more intriguing of the two. It's got functions that you're probably less familiar with, and that's obviously the Wavefolder and the dynamics section. So let's show you what a Wavefolder is. Put the sustain up, release up. Let's put it onto a triangle. No, let's put it onto a sine. It's probably easiest to show on a sine. We'll take the wavefold out, or take the signal from the wavefold out, because the sustain actually adds a bit of distortion. We'll show that in a second. So starting with the wavefold out, you can even got a bit of noise in there, and that's because it's turned up quite a lot so you can see the wave shape. And as you bring in the fold, you're increasing the volume, and basically what you're doing is you're increasing the volume or the gain of that wave, and as it increases, this is why it's called a folder, you can see those corners there, those two corners that are at 50% on that graph. That arch would normally go above it, but it's coming below. It's folding at the 50% mark. Folding, folding, folding. It's getting louder, it's getting louder. And then when it hits that zero again, it folds over itself again. There we go. I think this does it 6 times in all. And then it folds over itself again. And through and round. I'll just adjust this so we can see what's happening. Whoops. I just have to play with the volumes coming in actually. So start again. So 1 fold, 2 folds. Is that 3 now? 4 is that? 5, 6. Is that more than 6? Am I counting them wrong? But look what it does to the harmonics. So you start off with almost a sine wave, pretty much a single harmonic at 400. And that's what wave folding is. And that's what a wave folding oscillator does. So if we change the wave shape to a triangle, then to a sawtooth, then mix and match as well, also noise. Back to the sine, and I'll take that out of there for now. So you get the idea, a wave folding oscillator works completely different to you'd get with a normal oscillator through a filter. And the way the West Coast stuff works, and I'm not going to explain the history of it, I'm just going to show you what you do. You'd start off, if you're going to do something like the tone I'm going to do on this East Beast, let's do a really simple tone. Something where you start off with a lot of harmonics in it and then you reduce it, typical bass sound. To do the same thing on this sort of system, you would add harmonics and then take them away. So you could modulate the wave folding amount. Like that, sort of. Let's put it onto a sawtooth. And let's try and do that automated, as it were, just to give you an idea of what the differences in the synthesis are. And the way I'll do that is I'll modulate the amount of wavefold with this envelope on the East Beast. Take the envelope out and put it into the fold in, or the fold modulation in. And I'll need to trigger that envelope with the gate out on the West Pest. So at the gate out, and we need the envelope trigger in. Will that go in there and in? So there we go. We're modulating the amount of folding. Let's just take this off so we can't hear that. So just listening to the West Pest now, turn the East Beast down. Similar sort of thing. Starting off with lots of harmonics and ending up with not so many. Keep the sustain up on the West Pest so we can still hear it. that's what we're doing there. Essentially, we're just adding harmonics with the envelope and then twisting it down again. And that's the difference between East and West in a way. Then we come to this dynamics control, which is a bit like a low pass gate. And the low pass gate was originally developed by Buchla. I think at least Buchlas are famous for it, and it used to have an almost mythical status. The idea is that it represents how real instruments sound, using the harmonics as the sound dies out, like we've just shown there. So it's great to pluck some percussive stuff like we heard earlier. Again, so using the low pass gate, let's do something a bit. Very plucky, very typical West Coast sound. I'll just forget the modulation for now. And you can think of this as a basic envelope with a built-in gentle filter. On the classic designs, you didn't have control of anything really. They all have a really snappy fixed attack. You'll see there's no attack on this, and on the originals at least the release was dependent on the components, so for all intents and purposes it was fixed in each unit. But here we've got Pittsburgh's modern interpretation where they've added sustain and release, which we can tweak. Yeah, so on an original one you'd be sort of stuck with whatever you've got here, for example, which is where you get lots of those sort of plucky little modular things that you hear. So that's got an envelope and a filter in it essentially. It's got resonance here, and resonance is over on the waveform console, but actually it should really be in the dynamics control, because if you bring something else in to the dynamics control, you hear the resonance. I might show that in a second, but just so you can see what's happening here. You can hear the cut-off frequency dropping with that resonance when you release the key, or over the time of the envelope. And we've also got this release mod here, so it'll only modulate it using the LFO in release. Really nice that, isn't it? But yeah, I'll just show actually the resonance working with something coming in. If I bring in, let's bring in an oscillator from the East Beast and put it into the dynamics in. So now we're not listening to the Wavefolder, we're listening to the East Beast. I'll put it on hold so it's actually playing something. Oh no, it doesn't need to because it's the oscillator out. So that should be the East Beast we're listening to. You can hear the resonance is doing something. Let's take the release mod off. So really the dynamics controller is these four knobs. And I did say I would show you a little bit of distortion coming in with the sustain. So if we just put the fold, we'll put the oscillator back on to a sine. So it's the sine as I bring in sustain. You can hear it and see it flattening. It's definitely changing the tone as you bring in the sustain. up above about, I don't know, 2 o'clock, which is very nice. You can see all those higher harmonics coming in, or increasing at least. So yeah, both really nice little units, but really do come into their own once you start playing with them together actually. It's really good fun. If you're going to pick one, I'd pick it depending on what you've already got in your system. If you want the big fat squelchy analog sounds, or you want the plucky, more dynamic sounding West Coast stuff. Although they have really lent into that in a way, and they've put the sustain in so you don't have to use plucky sounds. So you can get some pretty destructive sounds out of it. Nice. They're the sort of things you're not going to get from the East Beast. I'll try and do something similar if I can. Let's whack up the FM on this as well. Turn up the volume, maybe. let's put the LFO into fast mode, shall we? Or was it? So as I say, they're not the sounds that you can get from the East Beast. Let's try and do a bit of PWM with that mental LFO as well. So we'll go to the oscillator wave. Well, it's pretty cool. Yeah, there you go. West Pest for that sort of sound. I like very much. But you get the idea. I wonder if we modulate the East Beast with the West Pest oscillator. Just to have a little play, really. Oscillator out. Filter mod in, maybe. Or the FM amount. Let's try the pitch out of the East Beast modulating the pitch of the West Pest, or controlling it, so pitch into the West Pest. Nice. I'm listening to the oscillator direct, so don't need to stick any gates from the East Beast into the West Pest. Try the fold out, see what that sounds like. Yeah, loads of experimentation needed there, isn't there? But all that'll sound great going through something like the hologram. Let's give it a go. A sort of semi-random sequence I think going on here. I'm not quite sure what I've programmed in. What are my final thoughts? I think they're both great value little units, great fun. I mean, you know, they are small things. You're not going to write a whole symphony on one of them. I really like playing around with them. I've had them for quite a while now, and which is why I was interested to speak to the guys at Cre8 over in Synthfest, because I was so interested in them. Nice little units, well worth checking out, great value for money. Two of them together is a whole world of joy and experimentation, especially if you throw in something like the microcosm, if you've got it in a rack maybe. If you've got it in your Euro rack, maybe something like the Zoya as well, because that's these two and a Zoya and you're off, man, wow. Only little downsides, perhaps, you know, you've always got to think of the downsides in these. Maybe a couple more patch points would have been useful, and something like an attenuator for a couple of things would have been useful. Also the pitch, the fine tune on the pitch, you can see these are in tune now, one's a lot lower than the other. But it'd be nice if the fine tune on there, you could modulate it by plus or minus an octave. So when you play the two of them together, you could get sort of chords and intervals and things like that, which is much harder to do using one sequencer, obviously, if you can only modulate or change the pitch or fine tune it by about a tone each way, something like that. All in all, really like them. Big thumbs up from me. Do check them out. The other thing people have mentioned is they don't really like the look of them. I suppose if you're going to stick them in your rack and you wanted it next to your Pittsburgh modular bits and bobs, they don't look quite as classy as the Pittsburgh modular stuff. But it wasn't until somebody mentioned it that I thought, oh, yeah, I suppose. But, it wasn't anything that jumped out at me, to be honest. But there you go. Just something to note. Anyway, I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere. If it was, please think about subscribing. Ring the bell, join me on Patreon, or whatever you can do to help the channel. It does all help. So thank you very much, and I shall see you soon.